The first thing I heard wasn't my husband's voice. It was the sound of expensive leather shoes on hospital linoleum. I'd been floating in darkness for what felt like both seconds and centuries. My body was a distant thing, something that belonged to someone else. But my mind had started crawling back, piece by piece, like puzzle pieces finding their way home. "Mrs. Brennan? Victoria?" The voice was familiar, professional. David Chen, my attorney. "If you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I tried. My fingers twitched. It felt like moving mountains. "Good. That's good. Don't try to open your eyes yet. Just listen." His voice dropped lower, and I felt him lean closer. The smell of his cologne, something cedar and expensive, cut through the hospital antiseptic. "Victoria, I need you to stay calm. I'm going to tell you something, and then I'm going to show you something. Can you squeeze once for yes?" I squeezed. "3 days ago, you collapsed at home. Richard called 911, told them you'd had a stroke, but the paramedics found something interesting. Traces of antifreeze in your system. Not enough to kill you immediately, but enough to shut down your organs slowly." My heart monitor started beeping faster. I felt David's hand tighten around mine. "The doctor said you needed emergency surgery, a kidney transplant. It would cost approximately $200,000. Your insurance would cover most of it, but Richard would need to authorize the procedure as your medical proxy." I waited. The darkness around me felt suddenly colder. He refused. David's voice was flat, emotionless, the way he sounded in court when he was presenting damning evidence. He told Dr. Patterson to let nature take its course. Then he signed a do not resuscitate order. The beeping got louder. A nurse's voice called out from somewhere far away, but David kept talking. "I was here for a routine document signing with another client. I heard Richard in the hallway outside your ICU room, laughing, so I recorded it." I felt something press into my palm. Cool, rectangular, a phone. "I'm going to play this for you now. Just listen." A click. Then Richard's voice, so clear it was like he was standing right next to me. "Finally, right? 28 years of listening to her complain about the thermostat, and now I don't have to pretend anymore." A woman's laugh. High, bright, familiar. My chest tightened. "You're terrible." That was Diane. Diane Morrison, my former friend. The woman I'd helped through her divorce let stay in our guest house for 6 months. What if she wakes up? She won't. Dr. Patterson said without the surgery, she's got maybe 48 hours. And even if by some miracle she does wake up, she'll be too brain damaged to do anything about it. The DNR is already signed. And the money? 15 million, baby. All mine. Community property state, and I'm the surviving spouse. We could be in Bali by next week. Another laugh from Diane. Then the sound of kissing. Wet and loud. "Should we go pick out which furniture we're keeping?" I've always hated that ugly dining set she inherited from her mother. "Sure. Let me just check on my dying wife first. Got to keep up appearances." The recording stopped. I lay there in the darkness, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 28 years of marriage. Clarity. "Victoria, I need you to listen very carefully." David's voice was urgent now. "I've already filed emergency motions to freeze all joint accounts and revoke Richard's medical proxy. Judge Morrison, no relation to Diane, signed off an hour ago. Richard doesn't know yet. I need to know if you want me to proceed with the full plan we discussed 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when I'd updated my will and asked David, hypothetically, what would happen if Richard ever tried to kill me for the inheritance my mother left me. David had said, also hypothetically, that we could build in certain protections, certain triggers. I squeezed his hand, hard. Good. I'm going to ask you yes or no questions. 1 squeeze for yes, 2 for no. Understood? 1 squeeze. Do you want to file for divorce? 1 squeeze. Do you want to pursue criminal charges? I hesitated. Then 1 squeeze. Do you want to execute the contingency plan? The contingency plan. The one David had outlined in his office, while rain hammered against the windows and I'd laughed, saying I was being paranoid. The plan that would, in David's words, Leave Richard with nothing but his socks. And even those would be repoed. One squeeze. All right, I'll begin the liquidation process immediately. But Victoria, I need you to do something for me. When Richard comes in here, and he will, probably in the next 10 minutes because visiting hours just started, I need you to pretend you're still in a vegetative state. Can you do that? One squeeze. Don't move. Don't react. Don't let him know you can hear anything. I'll be in the hallway. There are cameras in this room now. I had them installed yesterday. Everything he says and does is being recorded. I heard David stand up. His footsteps moved toward the door, then stopped. Victoria? One more thing. I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't see this coming. Sorry I didn't protect you better. I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault. That I'd chosen to marry Richard, to trust him. To believe that the charming man who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday genuinely loved me. And not just my eventual inheritance. But I couldn't speak. So I squeezed his hand one more time. A thank you. David's footsteps retreated. The door whispered shut. I waited. The clock on the wall ticked. My heart monitor beeped its steady rhythm. Someone laughed at the nurse's station down the hall. Then I heard them. 2 sets of footsteps. One heavy, confident, one lighter, clicking heels. The door opened. Jesus, look at her. Richard's voice. They've got her on so many machines. It's like a sci-fi movie. Is she breathing on her own? Diane asked. Barely. The nurse said she's showing some brain activity, but it's probably just reflexes. Like a chicken with its head cut off. They moved closer. I could smell Diane's perfume, the expensive one I'd bought her for her birthday last year. Her skin looks terrible, Diane said. Gray. Kidney failure will do that. A hand touched my arm. Richard's hand. I knew the shape of it, the callus on his thumb from his golf grip. For 28 years, that hand had held mine during movies, pulled me close during slow dances, stroked my hair when I was sad. Now it felt like a dead thing. Vicky, honey, if you can hear me, I want you to know I'm here. Richard's voice was soft, tender, Oscar-worthy. I'm not leaving your side. We're going to get through this together. You should probably cry a little, Diane whispered. The nurses are watching. Right. A pause. Then Richard made a sound like a sob. It was so fake I would have laughed if I could move. She was the love of my life, Richard said, louder now, for the nurses. I don't know what I'll do without her. Maybe you should hold her hand, Diane suggested. Richard picked up my hand, the one David had been holding minutes before, and squeezed it. Nothing. I didn't move, didn't flinch. I imagined myself as stone, as ice, as anything but a living woman who just heard her husband celebrate her impending death. See? Nothing. She's already gone, basically. Richard dropped my hand. It fell onto the sheets with a soft thump. The nurse said it could be any day now, maybe even today. Should we start calling funeral homes? Already did. Palmer and Sons. They do a very dignified service. I picked out a nice casket yesterday. Mahogany with brass handles. Vicky would have liked it. How much? $12,000, but it doesn't matter, does it? Once she's gone, we'll have $15 million to play with. They moved away from the bed. I heard rustling. Diane sitting in the visitor's chair. Richard leaning against the wall. Have you thought about what you'll do with the house? Diane asked. Sell it. Too many memories. We'll get something in Malibu. Or maybe we don't buy it all. Just travel for a year. Europe, Asia, wherever you want. I've always wanted to see the Amalfi Coast. Then we'll go. First class. The best hotels. Michelin-starred restaurants every night. What about her family? Won't they ask questions? What family? Her mother's dead. Her father died when she was a kid. She's got a sister in Seattle, but they haven't spoken in years. Some fight about their mom's jewelry. Vicky kept it all. The emerald set? Yeah. It'll look better on you anyway. My mother's emeralds. The ones she wore on her wedding day. The ones she'd held my hand and told me to save for my own daughter. I'd never had children. Richard had said he wasn't ready. Then we were too old. Then it was too late. I wondered now if he'd sabotaged that too. When should we move my stuff in? Diane asked. Give it a week after the funeral. Got to look respectable. But start picking out what furniture you want to keep. We can donate the rest, get the tax write-off. I hate that dining set. I know, baby. We'll get you a new one. Whatever you want. They kept talking. About paint colors for the bedroom, about whether to keep my car or sell it, about the cruise they'd take to celebrate their freedom. I stopped listening. Instead, I counted. Counted the beeps of my heart monitor. Counted the seconds until they'd leave. Counted the hours until Richard would realize he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. David had said he'd start the liquidation process immediately. That meant that right now, at this exact moment, my assets were being moved, protected, hidden behind legal structures so complex that Richard would need a decade and a team of lawyers to even understand them, let alone access them. And in 24 hours, he'd have nothing. The thought was better than morphine. We should go, Richard said finally. I told the guys I'd make our tea time at 2. No point sitting here watching her drool. You're playing golf? Diane sounded surprised. Life goes on, right? Besides, I've been stressed. I need to relax. Footsteps toward the door. Then they stopped. Wait, Richard said. Should I kiss her goodbye or something? For the cameras? Probably. He came back to the bed, leaned down. I felt his breath on my face, smelled the coffee and mints he always chewed. His lips touched my forehead. Goodbye, Vicky, he whispered. Thanks for everything. Then they were gone. I waited until the footsteps faded completely, until the hallway was quiet. Then I opened my eyes. The hospital room came into focus slowly. White ceiling tiles, fluorescent lights, machines beeping and humming around me, an IV in my arm, a catheter, tubes everywhere. I looked at the clock on the wall. 11:47 a.m. I had just over 24 hours. The door opened. David stepped inside, phone in hand, face grim. Did you get it all? I asked. My voice was rough, barely a whisper. Every word. David held up his phone. Recorded, backed up, and already sent to my secure server. How long until the assets are protected? The emergency freeze is already in effect. The full transfer will be complete by midnight tonight. I've got 3 firms working on it simultaneously. One in New York, one in London, one in Singapore. By tomorrow morning, every dollar will be in an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. And the house? Transferred to the trust at 9 a.m. this morning. Richard's name is off the deed. He just doesn't know it yet. I tried to sit up. Pain shot through my abdomen and I gasped. David rushed over, adjusting the bed so I was reclined instead of flat. Easy. You've been through major trauma. The doctors say you're recovering faster than expected, but you still need rest. I'll rest when he's bankrupt. David smiled. It was a thin, sharp smile. The kind he wore when he destroyed opposing counsel in court. Victoria, I need to ask you something. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Once we execute the full plan, there's no going back. Richard will lose everything. The house, the cars, the country club membership, his reputation, everything. I thought about Richard kissing Diane while I lay dying 10 feet away. Thought about him picking out my casket while planning his vacation. Thought about 28 years of I love you and you're my everything and till death do us part. I'm sure, I said. All right then. David pulled out his laptop. Let's destroy your husband. We worked for 3 hours. David showed me documents, explained legal structures, walked me through every step of the contingency plan. It was beautiful, elegant, brutal. By the time we were done, I was exhausted. My body felt like it had been hit by a truck, but my mind was clear. You should rest now, David said, packing up his laptop. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. David? Yes? Thank you for being here, for recording him, for believing me when I said something felt wrong. You hired me to protect you, Victoria. I'm just doing my job. It's more than that. David paused at the door, turned back. My mother was married to a man like Richard, he said quietly. Charming, successful. Everyone loved him. And then one day, she fell down the stairs, broke her neck. The insurance paid out $500,000. He remarried 6 months later. David, I'm sorry. Don't be. Just promise me you'll see this through. Men like Richard need to face consequences. Otherwise, they just find another victim. I promise. After David left, I stared at the ceiling and planned. Tomorrow, Richard would come to take me home. He'd play the devoted husband, set me up in the guest room, or knowing him, somewhere even more demeaning, and wait for me to either die or become incompetent enough to control. But I wasn't going to die, and I definitely wasn't going to be controlled. A nurse came in to check my vitals. Young, kind-faced, with tired eyes. "You're awake," she said, surprised. "How are you feeling, honey?" "Tired, but better." "That's wonderful. Your husband will be so happy. He's been here every day, you know. Just sits by your bed and holds your hand. You've got a good one there." I smiled, said nothing. Let her think Richard was a devoted husband. Let everyone think that. The truth would be so much sweeter when it came out. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark and watched the clock. Watched the minutes tick down. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from David. "It's done. Everything is secure. See you at 9 a.m. for discharge." I smiled. In 12 hours, Richard would come to collect his invalid wife, and in 24 hours, he'd be homeless. I closed my eyes and imagined his face when he realized what I'd done. It was better than any dream. Dr. Patterson signed my discharge papers at exactly 9:15 a.m. "You're recovering remarkably well, Mrs. Brennan," she said, her pen scratching across the forms. "Your kidney function has stabilized, and the neurological tests show no cognitive impairment. Honestly, it's almost miraculous. Thank you, doctor. However," she continued, looking at me over her reading glasses, "you'll need extensive rest, physical therapy, and close monitoring for the next several months. Do you have someone at home who can help care for you?" I felt my jaw tighten. "My husband will be here soon to take me home." Dr. Patterson's expression shifted. Something flickered in her eyes. Was it pity? Disgust? She knew. She had to know that Richard had refused the surgery, signed the DNR. But she smiled professionally and handed me the papers. "Of course. The nurse will bring a wheelchair shortly." After she left, David leaned against the window, arms crossed. "You don't have to go home with him, Victoria. I can have you transferred to a private facility. Somewhere safe." "No." I shook my head. "He needs to think he's won. If I disappear into some luxury rehab center, he'll get suspicious. This only works if he thinks I'm helpless." "You're sure you can pull this off? Pretending to be incapacitated?" I spent 28 years pretending I didn't notice him checking out younger women. I think I can manage playing confused for 24 hours. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "Richard just pulled into the parking lot. He's got Diane with him." "Good. Victoria, David, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "The wheelchair has a hidden pocket in the back cushion. There's a burner phone inside, already programmed with my number and access to all the legal documents. If you need anything, if he hurts you, if anything goes wrong, I'll call you. And you remember the code phrase? Red envelope. Right. You say those words, and I'll have police at the house in 4 minutes." The nurse arrived with the wheelchair before I could respond. She was different from the kind one last night. This one was brisk, efficient, already mentally on to her next patient. "Mrs. Brennan, let's get you settled." David helped me into the wheelchair. I let my body go slack, limbs heavy, movements slow and uncertain. The nurse draped a blanket over my lap. "Your husband is waiting in the lobby," she said, already pushing me toward the door. We rolled down the hallway, past other patients in rooms, past doctors consulting in hushed voices, past the nurse's station where someone was complaining about the coffee. Normal people having normal days. None of them knowing that I was about to walk into my own house like a spy entering enemy territory. The elevator dinged. We descended. The lobby. Doors opened, and there he was. Richard stood by the reception desk, looking every inch the concerned husband. He wore his navy suit, the one that made his eyes look bluer, and his expression was perfectly calibrated between grief and hope. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. "Vicky, oh sweetheart." He rushed over, knelt beside the wheelchair, took my hand. His eyes were wet. "I was so worried. They said you were awake, but I didn't believe it until I saw you with my own eyes." I stared at him, let my expression stay vacant, confused. "Richard?" I made my voice weak, uncertain. "What? Where am I?" "You're in the hospital, honey, but you're going to be okay now. I'm taking you home." Diane appeared behind him. She wore a cream-colored dress and my pearl earrings, the ones Richard had given me for our 10th anniversary. She'd styled her blonde hair the way I used to wear mine. She was trying to become me. "Hello, Victoria," Diane said softly. "I'm so glad you're all right. We've been so worried." I looked at her with blank eyes. "Do I know you?" Diane's smile faltered for just a second. Richard squeezed my hand. "This is Diane, honey. Our friend? She's been helping me take care of things while you were sick." "Oh." I blinked slowly. "That's nice." The nurse handed Richard a folder full of discharge instructions, medication schedules, follow-up appointments. He nodded along, playing the attentive spouse. "We'll take good care of her," he promised. "See that you do," David said coldly. Richard's smile tightened when he saw David. "Mr. Chen, I didn't realize you were still here. Mrs. Brennan is my client. I wanted to ensure she was being discharged into appropriate care." "Of course. Well, you can rest assured that my wife will have everything she needs at home." "I'm certain she will." David's tone could have frozen water. He leaned down, pretending to adjust my blanket, and whispered, "Back left pocket, red envelope." I gave the tiniest nod, and Richard wheeled me out to the parking lot. His car, a silver Mercedes, and was parked in a handicapped spot even though he didn't have a permit. Diane opened the back door and Richard lifted me from the wheelchair into the seat. His hands on my body felt like violation. "There we go, nice and easy," he murmured. "Let's get you home." The drive took 20 minutes. Richard kept up a constant stream of gentle commentary, telling me about the weather, about how the neighbors had asked about me, about how happy he was to have me back. Diane sat in the passenger seat, mostly silent, occasionally glancing back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it guilt? Satisfaction? Fear? I didn't care. In 22 hours, she'd be homeless too. We turned onto Maple Avenue, our street. The trees were in full bloom, their branches creating a canopy of green. Mrs. Henderson was watering her roses. The Kowalski kids were riding bikes. Everything looked exactly the same. Richard pulled into our driveway. The house was a colonial-style 2-story with white columns and black shutters. I'd spent 3 years renovating it, choosing every paint color, every light fixture, every detail. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Richard parked and came around to help me out. This time, I made it harder, letting my legs buckle, making him catch my weight. "Careful, Vicky. I've got you." He half carried me up the front steps. Diane held the door open. And then I saw it. My living room. The room I'd decorated with antique furniture inherited from my mother. The cream sofa where I'd read thousands of books. The mahogany coffee table that had been my grandmother's. The oil painting of the Maine coast that I'd bought on our honeymoon. All of it was gone. In its place was modern furniture, white leather, chrome, glass, minimalist art on the walls, a shaggy rug that looked like it cost more than a car. Diane's taste, Diane's style. She'd erased me. I must have made a sound because Richard's grip tightened. "We did some redecorating while you were in the hospital," he said quickly. "Thought a fresh start would be good for you. Do you like it?" I stared at the room, at the empty spaces where my mother's things should have been. I don't. I let my voice trail off, confused, lost. "It's a lot to take in," Diane said sympathetically. "Why don't we get you settled? You must be exhausted." Richard guided me past the living room, through the dining area, where my mother's table and chairs had been replaced with a sleek glass monstrosity, and down the hallway toward the bedrooms. But we didn't go to the master bedroom. Instead, Richard opened the door to what had been the guest room. Except it wasn't the guest room anymore. It was barely a room at all. The furniture had been removed except for a narrow hospital bed and a single nightstand. The curtains were gone. The carpet had been pulled up, leaving only bare floorboards. There was a stained smell of paint. "We converted this into a recovery room for you," Richard said. "The nurse said you'd need somewhere quiet and simple. Less stimulation." He meant less comfortable, less human. This was where he planned to keep me while I either died or became incompetent enough to control. "The master bedroom is being renovated," Diane added. "I'm sure you understand." She wasn't even trying to hide it now. Richard helped me onto the bed. It was hard, institutional, with plastic sheets that crinkled when I moved. He adjusted the pillows, thin, cheap ones, and pulled the blanket up to my chest. "There we go, nice and cozy." "Water," I whispered. "Can I have water?" "Of course, honey. Diane, would you?" Diane disappeared. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway toward the kitchen. My kitchen, with the marble countertops I'd chosen, the backsplash I designed. Richard sat on the edge of the bed. His weight made the cheap frame creak. "Vicky, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you understand me?" I nodded slowly. "Good. Tomorrow, a man is coming to see you. A lawyer. He's going to ask you to sign some papers. Important papers about your health care and your finances." "What? Papers?" "Nothing to worry about, just formalities. It'll make everything easier. For both of us." "Okay." His face relaxed. He thought I was compliant, confused, manageable, perfect. Diane returned with a plastic cup of water. Not even a glass, a disposable cup like you'd use for a child. I sipped it slowly, letting some dribble down my chin. Richard wiped it away with the blanket. "We'll let you rest now," he said, standing. "Diane and I will be right down the hall if you need anything. Just call out." They left, closing the door behind them. I waited until their footsteps faded. Then I sat up, fully alert, and looked around the room. No lock on the door, no phone jack. The window had been nailed shut. I could see the fresh paint around the nail heads. This wasn't a recovery room. It was a prison. I reached behind me, felt for the wheelchair cushion pocket, and pulled out the burner phone David had given me. It was small, basic, but functional. I had signal. Slowly, carefully, I got out of bed. My legs were weak, but they held. I moved to the door and pressed my ear against it. Voices from the living room. Richard and Diane, talking in normal tones. They thought I couldn't hear them. They were wrong. "Should call Thompson and confirm for tomorrow morning," Richard was saying. "I want those guardianship papers signed before she has time to think." "What if she refuses?" "She won't. You saw her. She's completely out of it. The doctor said the brain damage from the kidney failure might be permanent." "But what if she gets better?" "Then we adjust the medication. A little extra sedative in her water maybe. Just enough to keep her manageable." My hands clenched around the phone. "When do we get the money?" Diane asked. "As soon as the guardianship is finalized, I'll have access to everything. The $15 million, the house, all of it. We give it a month for appearances, then we sell the house and take off." "A month? Richard, I'm living out of a suitcase here." "Baby, I know, but we have to be careful. If we move too fast, people will ask questions. Victoria's lawyer, what's his name? Chen. He's already been sniffing around. Can he cause problems? Not once I have legal guardianship. Then he's got no standing. Victoria will be my responsibility, and what I say goes. And if she dies?" A pause. My blood turned to ice. "Then she dies," Richard said flatly. "The DNR is still in effect. Any medical emergency, and the doctors just let nature take its course." Diane laughed. Actually laughed. "You're terrible." "I'm practical. Now come here." Sounds of kissing. I turned away from the door, nausea rising in my throat. I typed a message to David. "In the house. Guest, room. They're talking about guardianship papers tomorrow morning. Lawyer named Thompson." The response came in seconds. "Thompson is Richard's attorney. The guardianship petition was filed 3 days ago while you were in the coma. Hearing was scheduled for next week, but I had it postponed. He's going to try to get your signature without court approval. Can he do that? Not legally. Any document you sign under duress or while impaired would be invalid. But he doesn't know that you're not actually impaired. Let him bring the papers. Sign them. I'll have them thrown out, and it'll be evidence of exploitation. Understood. I deleted the messages and hid the phone under the thin mattress. Then I lay back down, closed my eyes, and waited. Footsteps in the hallway. The door opened. She's sleeping, Richard whispered. Should we move my stuff into the master bedroom now? Yeah, let's get you settled. More footsteps. Heavier now. The sounds of suitcases being dragged, drawers opening and closing. Diane's voice calling out, Where do you want me to put these? They were moving her into my bedroom, into my life. I lay there in the narrow prison bed and counted down the hours. 18 hours until Richard was broke. 17 until he lost the house. 16 until everything he'd stolen would be ripped away. At some point, I actually did fall asleep. Exhaustion finally overtaking rage. I dreamed I was back in the hospital, back in the coma, floating in darkness. But this time, when I tried to wake up, I couldn't. I was trapped, screaming silently, while Richard and Diane packed up my mother's furniture and laughed. I woke with a gasp. The room was dark. Night had fallen while I slept. There was no clock, but I could see stars through the window. My door was slightly ajar. Light spilled in from the hallway. I heard Diane's voice, singing softly, some pop song I didn't recognize. Then water running. She was in the master bathroom, in my shower. I got up quietly and moved to the door, peered out. The hallway was empty. The master bedroom door was open, lights on. I could see my closet, empty now, clothes gone. Diane's things hung in their place. Richard's voice came from downstairs. He was on the phone. Told you, the money will be there by end of week. I just need a few more days. No, listen to me. I'm good for it. Because I'm about to inherit $15 million, that's why. He owed people money. Serious money, from the sound of it. This wasn't just greed. He was desperate. That made him more dangerous. I slipped back into my room and closed the door silently. Got back into bed just as footsteps came up the stairs. Richard opened my door. I kept my breathing slow and even, eyes closed. He stood there for a long moment. I felt his eyes on me. Then he closed the door and left. I waited another hour to be safe. Then I took out the burner phone and texted David. How much does Richard owe and to whom? David's response was fast. He must have been waiting for my message. Still investigating. But preliminary searches show at least $200K in credit card debt, another $150K to a private lending company called Meridian Capital, and some concerning connections to an underground gambling operation. He's in deep. Deep enough to kill? Victoria, people have been killed for a lot less. I put the phone away and stared at the ceiling. 28 years. I'd given him 28 years of my life. Supported him through law school, through the bar exam, through building his practice. I'd hosted dinners for his colleagues, smiled through boring fundraisers, played the perfect wife. And the whole time, he'd just been waiting for me to be worth more dead than alive. The rage I felt was clean and cold. Tomorrow morning, Richard would bring his lawyer. He'd have papers for me to sign, transferring control of my life and my money to him. And I'd sign them. Because those papers would be his confession, his proof of exploitation, his signed admission that he'd tried to steal from an incapacitated woman. David would take them apart in court, but that was just the legal game. The real checkmate was happening right now, in bank accounts and trust funds and legal structures that Richard didn't even know existed. By tomorrow afternoon, he'd have nothing, and I'd have everything. I smiled in the darkness and finally, truly, fell asleep. I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. Male voices, Richard and someone else. The clock on my phone said 8:47 a.m. Early for a home visit, but Richard had never been one to waste time when money was involved. I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I quickly hid the phone under my pillow and arranged myself in the bed. Slack posture, vacant expression, the picture of helpless confusion. The door opened. Richard entered first, followed by a man I didn't recognize. He was in his 60s, overweight, wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite fit. He carried a leather briefcase and had the practiced smile of someone who spent his life manipulating the vulnerable. "Vicky, honey, you awake?" Richard's voice was syrupy sweet. I turned my head slowly, blinking. "Richard, what time is it?" "Just after 8:30, sweetheart. This is Mr. Thompson. He's a lawyer. He's here to help us with some paperwork." Thompson stepped forward, extending his hand. I looked at it like I wasn't sure what to do. After an awkward moment, he withdrew it. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm so glad to see you're recovering. Your husband has been very worried about you." "Have you?" I asked Richard, my voice small and confused. "Of course, baby. You know I have." He pulled up the room's only chair, a metal folding chair that hadn't been there yesterday, and sat beside the bed. Thompson remained standing, opening his briefcase. "Now, Mrs. Brennan," Thompson began, pulling out a stack of documents. "I understand you've been through a traumatic medical event. Your husband has asked me to prepare some documents that will make things easier for everyone during your recovery." "What kind of documents?" "Primarily a limited power of attorney and a temporary guardianship agreement. These will allow your husband to handle your medical and financial affairs while you focus on getting better." "I don't understand." Thompson's smile became more patronizing. "It's quite simple. You're going to sign these papers, and then Richard will be able to make decisions about your health care, manage your bank accounts, that sort of thing. It's all very standard for situations like yours." "Situations like mine?" "When someone has experienced significant cognitive impairment." I let my eyes water. "Am I impaired?" "No, honey, of course not," Richard said quickly, shooting Thompson a look. "You're just tired. You need time to rest and heal. This is just to help you. That's all." Thompson cleared his throat and laid the documents on the nightstand. I could see the headers even from the bed. Durable power of attorney. Emergency guardianship petition. Healthcare proxy. My mother had explained these documents to me years ago when my grandmother was dying. I knew exactly what they meant. They meant Richard would control everything. My money, my medical care, my entire life. And once he had that control, I'd never get it back. Not unless I fought. And I couldn't fight if I was sedated or declared incompetent. This was it. This was his move. "I need you to sign each document where I've placed the tabs," Thompson said, pulling out a pen. An expensive fountain pen, the kind used for important signatures. "Do you understand?" Yes, I think so." "Good." He handed me the pen. My hand shook as I took it. That part wasn't an act. I was genuinely trembling with rage and adrenaline. "Start with the top document," Thompson instructed. I looked at the paper. The legal language swam before my eyes. Whereas, and heretofore, and party of the first part. I'd seen David draft hundreds of contracts. I knew this one was ironclad if I signed it. I also knew David was going to tear it to shreds. Should I read it first?" I asked hesitantly. "That's not necessary," Thompson said smoothly. "I've explained what it does. Unless you don't trust your husband?" It was a trap. If I said I didn't trust Richard, I'd look paranoid, possibly delusional. If I signed without reading, I'd look incompetent. Either way, Thompson would spin it in Richard's favor. "I trust Richard," I whispered. "Good girl," Richard said, patting my hand. I wanted to break his fingers. Instead, I put the pen to paper and signed my name, Victoria Brennan. The signature was shaky, uncertain, perfect for what Thompson needed. Excellent. Next page. I signed the healthcare proxy. Then the guardianship petition. Then 3 more documents whose purposes I couldn't even determine from the headers. With each signature, Richard's smile grew wider. Finally, Thompson collected the papers, checking each signature carefully. Perfect. These will be filed with the probate court this afternoon. The guardianship should be approved within a few days. And the bank accounts? Richard asked. The power of attorney is effective immediately. You'll be able to access everything by end of business today. Richard's whole body relaxed. He thought he'd won. Thank you, Thompson. Send me your invoice. Of course. Thompson snapped his briefcase shut and headed for the door, then paused. Mrs. Brennan, I hope you feel better soon. I gave him a vague smile and said nothing. After Thompson left, Richard lingered. He picked up the pen I'd used and slipped it into his pocket. You did great, Vicky. This is going to make everything so much easier. Can I have breakfast? I asked. I'm hungry. Sure, honey. I'll have Diane bring you something. Where is Diane? She's downstairs. She's staying here for a while to help take care of you. Isn't that nice? Very nice. Richard leaned down and kissed my forehead. His lips lingered a moment too long. Rest now. I have some errands to run, but I'll be back soon. Okay. He left, closing the door behind him. I counted to 60. Then I pulled out the burner phone and texted David. He did it. Thompson was here. I signed everything. Perfect. I've already got people at the courthouse. The moment he files those documents, we'll have copies. I'm also filing an emergency motion to invalidate them based on your medical records showing full cognitive function. Did they video the signing? I don't think so. Doesn't matter. I have the hospital discharge papers from yesterday stating you have no cognitive impairment. His own documents contradict each other. He's buried himself. What about the bank accounts? Thompson said the POA is effective immediately. Let him try. I'll be very interested to see his reaction. I smiled. Put the phone away. Downstairs, I heard Richard's voice, excited and loud. Finally, I can access the accounts now. We need to move fast before Chen tries anything else. Diane's voice, cautious. Are you sure this is legal? Who cares? By the time anyone questions it, we'll be long gone. I'm going to the bank right now. What about Victoria? What about her? She's not going anywhere. The front door opened and slammed shut. Richard's car started in the driveway, then peeled out onto the street. He was going to the bank, right now, to try to access my $15 million. I checked the time, 9:23 a.m. In approximately 6 minutes, Richard was going to get the shock of his life. I wished I could be there to see his face. Downstairs, Diane was moving around, opening cabinets, closing them. The coffee maker gurgled. My stomach actually was hungry. I hadn't eaten since yesterday's hospital breakfast, but I didn't want anything Diane touched. I waited. The minutes crawled. By 9:29 a.m., Richard would be at the bank now, probably at First National. That's where we'd had our joint account for 20 years. He'd be talking to his favorite banker, Sandra, the one who always laughed at his jokes. 9:31 a.m., he'd be presenting the power of attorney, asking to access the accounts, all of them. 9:33 a.m., Sandra would be typing into her computer, frowning, typing more. 9:35 a.m., my phone buzzed, a text from David. Phase 1 complete. All assets transferred to irrevocable trust at 12:01 a.m. last night. Richard Brennan has zero access, zero balance. The house deed was transferred to the trust at 9 a.m. this morning. He owns nothing. I stared at the message. It was done. 28 years of marriage, and in 24 hours, I'd erased him completely. Another buzz. Also, his credit cards were declined starting at 6 a.m. I may have made some calls to his creditors, informing them of his changed financial status. Several have already filed collection proceedings. David, you're evil. I learned from the best. Now sit tight. This is about to get very interesting. I got out of bed and moved to the window. It faced the front of the house, overlooking the driveway and street. I wanted to see him come home, wanted to see his face. Diane appeared at my door with a tray, toast and weak tea, the kind of meal you'd give a child. Victoria, I brought you breakfast. I turned from the window, rearranging my expression into confusion. Oh, thank you. She set the tray on the nightstand, eyeing me suspiciously. You're out of bed. I had to use the bathroom. You should call me to help you. You might fall. I'll remember that. She left, but I noticed she didn't close the door all the way. She was watching me. I forced myself to sit on the bed and nibble the toast. It was dry, no butter. The tea was barely warm. This was what my life would have been. This room, this bed, this food. A prisoner in my own house while Richard spent my money and Diane slept in my bed. My phone buzzed again. Richard just left First National Bank. Witnesses say he was shouting. He's trying the other banks now. This should take approximately 45 more minutes before he runs out of options. I allowed myself a small smile. 10:15 a.m. Diane came back for the tray. I'd eaten half the toast and none of the tea. You need to eat more, she said, but her tone was distracted. She was looking at her phone, frowning. Is something wrong? I asked innocently. Richard's not answering my calls. Maybe he's busy. Maybe. But she looked worried. 10:47 a.m. A car screeched into the driveway. I heard the door slam so hard it shook the house. Richard's voice roaring, Diane! Footsteps thundering up the stairs. He burst into my room, face red, eyes wild. What did you do? I blinked at him, confused. Richard? What's wrong? The accounts. They're empty. All of them. The house? The deed says it belongs to some trust I've never heard of. What the hell did you do? I don't understand. He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. Don't play dumb with me. Chen did this, didn't he? You and Chen planned this. Richard, you're hurting me. I'll do worse than hurt you if you don't tell me where the money is. Diane appeared in the doorway. Richard, stop! You're scaring her. Stay out of this. He raised his hand. I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eye and said very clearly, if you hit me, I'll have you arrested for assault. And given that you've already tried to murder me once this week, I don't think the police will be very sympathetic. Richard froze. His expression shifted from rage to confusion to dawning horror. You're not impaired, he whispered. No. You've been faking. Yes. The signatures will be invalidated by my attorney within the hour. Signing legal documents under false pretenses is fraud, Richard. You do know that, right? You did go to law school? He staggered backward, hand dropping. You can't do this. That money is half mine. Community property was community property until you signed a DNR and tried to let me die. At that point, it became attempted murder for financial gain, which tends to void any community property claims. David explained it to me. He used very small words so I'd understand. Diane was staring at me, mouth open. How long have you been awake? She asked. Since the hospital. I heard everything. The DNR, the inheritance, your plans for Bali, all of it. That's not possible. You were in a coma. David recorded you, Richard, both of you. There's video of you telling the doctor to let me die, audio of you discussing my funeral while I was 10 feet away, text messages between you and Diane planning my murder. I stood up from the bed. My legs were steady. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this house, my house, right now. You're going to take Diane and whatever belongs to you, and you're going to go. And if you ever contact me again, I will release every piece of evidence to the police and the State Bar Association. You're bluffing. Am I? Do you really want to find out? Richard's face cycled through emotions. Rage, fear, desperation, and finally, calculation. Fine. Keep the house. Keep the money. But I want half. I'm entitled to it. You're entitled to nothing. Then I'll sue. I'll drag you through every court in the state. With what money? Your credit cards are maxed out. Your creditors are already filing collection lawsuits. And I happen to know you owe Meridian Capital $150,000 due last week. How are you going to pay for a lawyer when you can't even pay off your loan sharks? His face went white. How do you? I know everything, Richard. Everything you've done, everyone you owe, every lie you've told. David is very thorough. Diane grabbed Richard's arm. We should go. No, this is my house, my life. It's not anymore, I said softly. You gave that up when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. Richard looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Who are you? I'm the woman you tried to murder. And I'm the woman who's going to make sure you pay for it. He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked out. Diane followed, but paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said quietly. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're just sorry you got caught. She flinched, then left. I stood there, listening to them move through the house. Drawers opening, suitcases zipping. Hurried, panicked sounds. Then the front door opened and closed. Silence. I walked to the window and watched them load Diane's suitcases into Richard's Mercedes. He was on his phone, arguing with someone. Diane sat in the passenger seat, crying. The car pulled out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. They were gone. I pulled out the burner phone and called David. They left, I said. I know. I've had someone watching the house. Are you all right? I'm perfect. What happens now? Now we wait for him to make his next mistake. And trust me, Victoria, he will. I hung up and looked around the room. My prison cell. Not anymore. I walked out into the hallway, saw the master bedroom, my bedroom, with the door open. Diane had left in such a hurry that her things were still scattered everywhere. Makeup on the dresser, clothes on the bed. I gathered it all up and threw it out the window into the yard. Then I stripped the bed, put on fresh sheets from the linen closet, and lay down in my own bed for the first time in days. It felt like victory. I didn't hear from Richard for 3 hours. I spent that time systematically reclaiming my house. I dragged Diane's things from the master bedroom and piled them in the front yard. Her clothes, her shoes, her toiletries, all of it went into a soggy heap on the lawn for the neighbors to see. Mrs. Henderson walked by with her dog and stared. Spring cleaning, I called out cheerfully. She hurried away. I went through every room looking for what else had changed. The living room furniture was Diane's, so I called a charity and scheduled a pickup. My mother's antiques were gone, sold, probably, or in storage somewhere. I'd find them later. Right now, I just wanted every trace of her erased. In the kitchen, I found my good china shoved into the back of a cabinet, replaced with modern white plates that all looked like they came from a hotel. I pulled the china out, washed each piece carefully, put it back where it belonged. It felt like an exorcism. My phone rang. David. Victoria, we have a situation. What kind of situation? Richard just tried to book 2 first-class tickets to Bali. The card was declined. I smiled. That's not a situation. That's karma. Wait, there's more. After the airline, he tried 3 different restaurants for lunch reservations. All declined. Then he went to a jewelry store, I'm guessing to pawn something, and they ran his credit for a loan. Denied. He's currently at the Fairmont Hotel trying to check in. Let me guess. Declined. Victoria, he's spiraling. My investigator says he looks frantic. He's making scenes in public. This is good for us. Every declined card, every witness to his meltdown, it all builds the case that he's financially desperate. But I'm worried he's going to do something stupid. Like what? Like come back to the house. Like try to force you to reverse the transfers. Like hurt you. I can handle Richard? I'm sending someone over, a security consultant. He'll set up cameras, change the locks, make sure you're safe. David, I don't need... Victoria, please, let me do this. I sighed. Fine, but tell him to knock first. Thank you. The security consultant arrived 20 minutes later. His name was Marcus. He was ex-military, and he had the kind of calm, competent demeanor that made me feel instantly safer. Mr. Chen briefed me on the situation, he said, setting down a large equipment case in my foyer. I'm going to install cameras at all entry points, replace your locks, and set up a panic button system that connects directly to police dispatch. Should take about 2 hours. Whatever you think is necessary. While Marcus worked, I made tea and sat in my kitchen, and tried to process everything that had happened. 48 hours ago, I'd been dying. Richard had been planning my funeral and his new life. Now he had nothing, and I had everything. It should have felt better. Instead, I just felt tired and sad. Not sad for him, sad for me. For the woman I'd been who trusted him, loved him, built a life with him. That woman had been a fool. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Victoria, please. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Richard. I blocked the number. 2 minutes later, another text from a different number. I know you're angry, but this is insane. You can't just steal everything. I have rights. I blocked that one too. Then my actual phone, not the burner, started ringing. Richard's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called 6 more times. On the 7th call, I answered. Stop calling me. Vicky, thank God. Listen to me. No, you listen. We have nothing to discuss. Everything you want to say can go through lawyers. I don't have a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer because you've frozen me out of everything. You froze yourself out when you signed a DNR and tried to murder me. I didn't try to murder you. Then what do you call refusing life-saving medical treatment? Silence. Then, it was a mistake. I panicked. The doctor said you probably wouldn't survive anyway, and the costs were astronomical, and I made a mistake. You made a choice, and now you're living with the consequences. Please, Vicky, I'm begging you. I need money, just enough to pay off some debts and get back on my feet. 20,000, 10,000, anything. No. They're going to kill me. Who? The people I owe. Meridian Capital, they're not just a lending company, Vicky. They're connected, dangerous. If I don't pay them back, they'll... Maybe you should have thought of that before you gambled away hundreds of thousands of dollars. How did you... Never mind. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm desperate. You're right. You don't deserve it. I hung up. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. Everything okay? Just my husband begging for money. Ex-husband, soon, Marcus said. The locks are changed. Here are your new keys. He handed me a set of brass keys on a plain ring. I've also installed motion sensors on all ground floor windows and doors. If anyone tries to break in, you'll get an alert on your phone, and so will the police. Thank you. One more thing. He held out a small device that looked like a car key fob. This is your panic button. You press it, and police and private security will be here in under 4 minutes. Keep it with you at all times. I took it, feeling the weight of it in my palm. You think he's going to come back? I think desperate people do desperate things. Better to be prepared. After Marcus left, I locked the new locks and set the alarm. The house felt different, safer, mine. I made dinner, just pasta and salad, nothing fancy, and ate it at the kitchen island while scrolling through my phone. There were 17 missed calls from Richard, 9 voicemails, 32 texts from various numbers, all blocked now. The voicemails were a progression of desperation. First, Vicky, please call me back. We can work this out. 5th, you can't just abandon me like this. I'm your husband. 9th, I'm going to sue you for everything. You'll regret this. 17th, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just help me, please. His voice on the last one was raw, broken. He was crying. I deleted them all. At 7:47 p.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the camera feed on my phone, one of Marcus's installations. It showed Richard standing on my front porch, looking haggard. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened. He'd aged a decade in 6 hours. Diane was with him, standing slightly behind, arms crossed. I didn't open the door. Victoria, I know you're in there, Richard called. I can see the lights on. Please, just talk to me. I stayed silent. Vicky, come on. Don't be childish. We're still married. This is still my house, too. Actually, I called through the HUD door. It's not. The deed is in my trust. You're trespassing. I live here. Not anymore. You moved out this morning. I have it on video. That's not... I didn't mean... We just needed some space. You have space, anywhere but here. Vicky, please. He pounded on the door. Diane pulled at his arm, saying something I couldn't hear. I picked up my phone and called the non-emergency police line. Hi, yes. I'd like to report a trespasser at my home. He's my estranged husband, and he's banging on my door and refusing to leave. I have a restraining order. I didn't actually, but David was filing for one tomorrow. Close enough. The dispatcher said someone would be there in 10 minutes. Richard must have heard me through the door because he suddenly stopped pounding. You called the cops? Are you serious? Very. Jesus Christ, Vicky, what happened to you? You used to be so sweet, so kind. I used to be a lot of things before you tried to kill me. I didn't... He stopped. Started again. Okay, fine. You want to play hardball? We'll play hardball. I'm going to the police station right now and filing a report for financial elder abuse. You've stolen my assets, locked me out of my home, and left me destitute. We'll see what they think about that. Good luck. Make sure to mention the part where you signed a DNR and refused medical treatment so you could inherit my money. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Silence. Then Diane's voice, sharp. Richard, let's go. This isn't working. We can't just leave. We have nowhere to go. We'll figure it out. Come on. Footsteps retreating. A car door slamming. The Mercedes pulling out of the driveway just as a police cruiser pulled in. I opened the door for the officers, 2 of them young and professional. I explained the situation calmly, showed them the property deed with the trust name, explained that Richard had moved out that morning. They made notes, gave me an incident report number, and advised me to file for a restraining order formally. Has he threatened you, ma'am? One officer asked. Not directly, but he did try to deny me life-saving medical treatment a week ago. I have documentation if you need it. Their expressions hardened. We'll make a note in the system. If he comes back, call 911 immediately. After they left, I poured myself a glass of wine, a good Cabernet from the cellar Richard didn't know I had, and sat on my back patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My garden was overgrown. I'd been in the hospital for days, and Richard certainly hadn't watered anything, but it was still beautiful, peaceful. Mine. My phone buzzed. David. I heard there was a police visit. Richard showed up. He's desperate. Good. The more erratic he acts, the stronger our case. Speaking of which, I have news. Remember how I said Richard had gambling debts? Yes. I found the source. He's been playing high-stakes poker at an underground club in the city. Lost $180,000 over the last 8 months. He borrowed from Meridian Capital to cover the losses, then borrowed more to try to win it back. Let me guess. He lost that too. Correct. He's in the hole for $350,000 total. Meridian Capital wants their money by Friday, or they're taking collateral. What collateral? He doesn't have anything. Exactly. Which means they're going to come looking for him. And when they find out he has no assets, no house, no access to your money, well, let's just say Meridian Capital doesn't have a reputation for lenient payment plans. You're saying he's in physical danger? I'm saying he put himself in physical danger. That's not your problem. But it felt like my problem. Because as much as I hated Richard, as much as he deserved everything that was happening to him, I didn't want him dead. I just wanted him gone. David, is there any way to... No, Victoria, listen to me. You cannot save him. If you give him money now, even $1, it establishes that you're responsible for his debts. It opens the door for him to claim ongoing financial support. You'll never be free of him. But if something happens, it's because of choices he made, not you. You didn't force him to gamble. You didn't force him to take out loans from criminals. You didn't force him to try to murder you for inheritance money. He did all of that himself. I knew David was right, but I still felt sick. I finished my wine and went inside, locked the doors, set the alarm, triple-checked every window. That night, I dreamed Richard was pounding on the door, screaming for help, while men in suits stood behind him with guns. In the dream, I opened the door, and they shot him right in front of me. I woke up gasping, heart racing. The clock said 3:47 a.m. I got up, walked through the house, checked that everything was locked and secure. Everything was fine. Richard wasn't my responsibility anymore. I repeated that to myself until I believed it. The next morning started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Brennan? A woman's voice, professional and cold. Yes? This is Sandra Hewitt from First National Bank. I'm calling about your joint account with Richard Brennan. That account was closed yesterday. Yes, I'm aware. I'm calling because Mr. Brennan came into the branch this morning and attempted to cash a check for $50,000 drawn on that account. I sat up straighter. What? The check was signed by you, dated 3 weeks ago, before your hospitalization. My mind raced. 3 weeks ago, Richard had asked me to sign some checks for household expenses. I'd signed a few blank ones and left them in the desk drawer for him to fill out as needed. He'd saved one, and now he was trying to use it. That check is fraudulent, I said. I didn't authorize any $50,000 payment. That's what I suspected. The signature looked authentic, but the circumstances were suspicious. I told Mr. Brennan the check would need to be verified, which would take 3 to 5 business days. He became quite agitated. How agitated? We had to call security. He's been banned from the branch. I almost laughed. Almost. Thank you for calling, Ms. Hewitt. Of course. I'll flag the check as fraudulent in our system. If Mr. Brennan tries this at another branch, they'll be alerted. After I hung up, I called David. He tried to cash a forged check for $50,000. Desperate, David said, and stupid. That's check fraud. We can add it to the criminal complaint. How much evidence do we have now? Attempted murder, exploitation of an incapacitated person, fraud, forgery. Victoria, when we're done, Richard won't just be broke. He'll be in prison. The thought should have made me happy. Instead, it just made me tired. When does this end? Soon. I've scheduled a meeting with the DA's office for Monday. We present everything. They decide whether to prosecute. My guess is they'll jump at it. This case is a slam dunk. And until then, you stay safe. Stay away from Richard. Let him spiral. I spent the morning in my garden, pulling weeds and trying not to think. The physical work felt good. Real. It reminded me that I still had a body, a life, a future beyond legal battles and betrayal. Mrs. Henderson stopped by around noon, carrying a casserole. I heard about your trouble, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. With Richard. News traveled fast in our neighborhood. I'm fine, Mrs. Henderson. Thank you. If you need anything, someone to talk to, or just company, I'm right next door. It was the kindest anyone had been to me in days. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, really. After she left, I ate the casserole, chicken and rice, simple and perfect, and felt less alone. At 2:37 p.m., my security system alerted me to motion at the back gate. I pulled up the camera feed. Richard and Diane were trying to climb the fence. I watched in disbelief as Richard boosted Diane up, her heels kicking against the wooden slats. She made it over, landing awkwardly in my rose bushes. Then Richard climbed up after her, less gracefully, and dropped into my yard. They were breaking into my house. I grabbed my phone and the panic button Marcus had given me. Then I went to the back window and watched. Richard tried the patio door. Locked. He moved to the kitchen window, testing it. Also locked. Diane was limping, her ankle had twisted in the landing, and she looked scared. Richard, this is crazy, she hissed. This is breaking and entering. It's my house. It's not, and you know it. We need to leave before she calls the cops. I just need to get into the safe. There's cash in there, and jewelry, stuff we can sell. The safe. I'd forgotten about it. It was in the master bedroom closet, hidden behind a false panel. Inside was about $20,000 in emergency cash, plus some of my mother's jewelry. Richard knew the combination. I'd given it to him years ago. If they got inside, they'd take it all. I pressed the panic button. Then I walked to the back door and unlocked it. Richard and Diane froze when they saw me standing there. Looking for something? I asked. Richard's face cycled through guilt, defiance, and desperation. He settled on defiance. I need the emergency cash. And the jewelry. It's community property. Nothing in this house is community property anymore. We've been over this. Vicky, please. I'm not leaving until I get what I came for. Yes, you are. Because I pressed the panic button 2 minutes ago, which means police will be here in about 90 seconds. Diane grabbed his arm. Richard, we have to go. Now. But Richard pushed past me into the house. I didn't try to stop him. I just followed, phone in hand, recording everything. He ran up the stairs to the master bedroom, Diane limping behind. I heard him in the closet, the false panel sliding open, the safe beeping as he entered the code. The siren started, close and getting closer. Richard! Diane screamed. They're here! Richard emerged from the closet with a duffel bag, stuffed full. I could see the corner of my mother's jewelry box sticking out. "You're not taking that," I said. "Watch me." He tried to push past me. I grabbed the duffel bag, yanking hard. It ripped open, spilling cash and jewelry across the bedroom floor. My mother's emerald necklace, her wedding ring, her sapphire earrings. Richard dropped to his knees, scrambling to gather it up. The front door burst open downstairs. "Police! Show yourself!" "Up here?" I called. "Intruders in the master bedroom!" Heavy footsteps on the stairs. 2 officers appeared in the doorway, hands on their weapons. "Everyone freeze!" Richard looked up from the floor, hands full of cash and jewelry, and realized how this looked. "This isn't what it seems. Sir, put down what you're holding and put your hands on your head." "This is my house. That's my wife." "Sir, I will not ask again." Richard dropped the cash, slowly raised his hands. One officer moved in, pulling Richard's arms behind his back, clicking handcuffs into place. The other turned to Diane. "Ma'am, are you a resident of this property?" No, but did you have permission to be here?" Diane looked at me. I stared back, expressionless. "No," she whispered. "Turn around, please." They handcuffed Diane too. The first officer turned to me. "Ma'am, are you Victoria Brennan?" "I am." "Are you the owner of this property?" "Yes." "I have the deed if you need to see it." "That won't be necessary. We have it on file from the call last night. Did you give these individuals permission to enter your home?" "No. I told Mr. Brennan explicitly that he was not welcome here. I have video of him climbing my back fence and breaking into my house. We'll need that video for evidence." "Of course." They led Richard and Diane downstairs. Richard was shouting the whole way. "This is insane. Vicky, tell them. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." I said nothing. I watched from the porch as they put Richard and Diane into separate patrol cars. Richard was still yelling, his face red and contorted. Diane was crying silently. The neighbors had come out to watch. Mrs. Henderson, the Kowalskis, the Patels from across the street. Everyone standing on their lawns, phones out, recording. Richard's humiliation was public now, complete. One of the officers came back to take my statement. I explained everything calmly. The attempted murder, the financial exploitation, the previous trespassing incident, today's break-in. I showed him the video footage from Marcus's cameras. "We'll be charging them both with breaking and entering, attempted theft, and trespassing," the officer said. "Given Mr. Brennan's previous incident here and the restraining order you're filing, the DA will probably ask for bail to be denied." "There's more," AI said. "He also tried to cash a fraudulent check this morning. First National Bank has documentation." The officer's eyebrows rose. "We'll look into that as well." After everyone left, I stood in my bedroom and looked at the mess. Cash and jewelry scattered across the floor. The safe hanging open. The duffel bag ripped and abandoned. I gathered up my mother's jewelry piece by piece, holding each one carefully. The emerald necklace she wore on her wedding day. The sapphire earrings my father gave her for their anniversary. The simple gold band she never took off. I'd almost lost them. Almost let Richard pawn them for gambling debts or whatever hole he dug himself into. I put everything back in the jewelry box, locked it in the safe, and changed the combination. Then I called David. Richard was just arrested for breaking into my house. I heard. The DA's office called me. They want to move up our meeting to tomorrow. This changes everything. They can hold him while we build the case. How long can they hold him? With bail denied? Until trial. Could be months. Months of Richard in jail. Months of not looking over my shoulder. Months of peace. Good, I said. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No nightmares, no waking up in panic, just deep, dreamless sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through my bedroom windows. Birds were singing in the garden. The house was quiet and still and mine. I made coffee. Real coffee, the expensive kind Richard always said was a waste of money, and sat on my back patio. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Meeting with DA is at 10 a.m. I'll pick you up at 9:30. Bring any additional evidence you want to present. I texted back, I'll be ready. At exactly 9:30, David's car pulled into my driveway. I grabbed my purse and the folder of documents I'd prepared. Bank records, medical records, the hospital recordings, everything. How are you feeling? David asked as we drove toward the city. Nervous. What if they don't think there's enough evidence? Victoria, there's more than enough evidence. Trust me. The DA's office was in a gray government building downtown. We were shown to a conference room where a woman in her 40s was waiting. She introduced herself as Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Martinez. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming in. I've reviewed the preliminary information Mr. Chen provided, and I have to say, this is one of the more egregious cases I've seen. We spent 2 hours going through everything. The DNR recording, the conversations in the hospital, the guardianship fraud, the check fraud, the break-in. Ada Martinez took notes, asked pointed questions, and by the end, she was shaking her head in disgust. We're going to prosecute, she said. All of it. Attempted murder, exploitation, fraud, burglary. I'm going to push for the maximum sentence. How long? I asked. If convicted on all counts? 15 to 20 years. 15 to 20 years. Richard would be in his 70s when he got out. What about Diane Monica? I asked. She's looking at breaking and entering, possibly conspiracy if we can prove she knew about the DNR. Probably 5 years. Eligible for parole in 3. I nodded. It felt right. Not satisfying exactly. Just right. Thank you, I said. Thank you for coming forward. Too many people in your situation don't. They're too scared, or they think they deserve it somehow. You probably saved the next woman he would have targeted. After the meeting, David drove me home. We didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. When we pulled into my driveway, he turned to me. How are you really doing, Victoria? I don't know, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel victorious, but I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been in survival mode for days. Now that the immediate threat is over, your body and mind need time to process. How long does that take? As long as it takes. Be patient with yourself. I nodded, got out of the car, walked to my front door, turned back. David, thank you for everything, for believing me, for fighting for me. Always, he said. Inside, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood in my living room, empty of furniture but mine, and let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal, the fear, the rage, the grief, and underneath it all, relief. I was alive, I was free, I was going to be okay. The trial started 6 months later on a cold Tuesday in November. I sat in the courtroom gallery, David beside me, and watched Richard shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd lost weight. His hair had gone gray at the temples. He looked small. He saw me and our eyes met. I didn't look away. The trial lasted 8 days. The prosecution presented the DNR recording, the hospital videos, the forged check, the break-in footage. They called Dr. Patterson, who testified that Richard had refused life-saving treatment. They called the bank manager who'd witnessed his meltdown. They called the officers who'd arrested him. Richard's public defender tried. He really did. He argued that Richard had panicked in a crisis, that he'd made poor decisions under stress, that there was no proof of premeditation. But then the prosecution played the recording of Richard laughing with Diane about my funeral while I lay dying 10 feet away. The jury's faces changed. On day 7, the prosecution called me to testify. I walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Ada Martinez approached. Mrs. Brennan, can you tell the jury about your relationship with the defendant? We were married for 28 years. I thought he loved me. When did you first suspect otherwise? When I woke up from a coma and learned he'd signed an order to let me die so he could inherit my money. Martinez walked me through everything. The poisoning, the DNR, the hospital, the fake guardianship, the break-in. I kept my voice steady. Factual. I didn't cry or yell, I just told the truth. When it was the defense attorney's turn to cross-examine, he stood up slowly. Mrs. Brennan, isn't it true that you and Mr. Brennan had been having marital difficulties? No, you never fought. All couples disagree sometimes. We weren't having difficulties. Isn't it true that you refused to have children, which Mr. Brennan desperately wanted? I felt anger flash through me. That's not true. Richard said he didn't want children. I would have loved to be a mother. So you're saying Mr. Brennan lied about that? I'm saying he's lied about a lot of things. The defense attorney tried a few more angles, but nothing stuck. Finally, he sat down. I stepped down from the witness stand and returned to my seat. Richard was staring at me. His eyes were wet, too late for tears now. On day 8, the jury deliberated for 3 hours. They came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. Richard's face crumpled. His public defender put a hand on his shoulder, but Richard shook it off. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, I was there again. The judge was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no patience for nonsense. She looked at Richard with open contempt. Mr. Brennan, you attempted to murder your wife of 28 years for financial gain. You exploited her while she was incapacitated. You committed fraud and burglary. You have shown no remorse and no accountability. You are a danger to society and to any woman unfortunate enough to trust you. She sentenced him to 18 years in state prison, with a possibility of parole after 12. Richard was 54 years old. He'd be 66 at the earliest when he got out, an old man with nothing and no one. Diane had already been sentenced to 4 years. She'd taken a plea deal and testified against Richard in exchange for a reduced sentence. I heard she was teaching yoga to other inmates, trying to find herself, apparently. I hope she found someone better than who she'd been with Richard. After sentencing, David and I walked out of the courthouse together. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter, I said, and I meant it. The next month, the divorce was finalized. Richard didn't contest it. Hard to fight from prison. I got everything, which was only fair since everything had been mine to begin with. I sold the house. Too many bad memories. I bought a smaller place by the ocean with big windows and a garden I could tend myself. I had my mother's furniture brought out of storage and placed it carefully in my new home. The dining table where I'd eaten Sunday dinners as a child. The bookshelf where she'd kept her favorite novels. The rocking chair where she'd sung to me. I was surrounded by love again. I joined a book club, started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping others who'd escaped dangerous relationships. I traveled Italy, Greece, Thailand, all the places Richard had always been too busy to visit. I learned to live alone. And then slowly, I learned that I wasn't alone at all. I had friends, community, purpose. I had myself. 1 year after the trial, I got a letter from prison. Richard's handwriting. I almost threw it away. But curiosity got the better of me. Dear Vicky, it read, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I was sick. Addicted to gambling, desperate, not thinking clearly. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. You deserved better than me. You deserved better than what I did to you. I hope you're happy now. I hope you found peace. That's all I want for you. Love, Richard. I read it twice. Then I wrote back. Richard, I appreciate your apology, but I don't forgive you. Not because I'm holding on to anger, but because forgiveness implies that what you did can somehow be balanced or erased. It can't. You tried to kill me. You betrayed every vow you made. Those are facts, and they don't change because you're sorry now. I hope you use your time in prison to become a better person. I hope you get help for your addiction. I hope you learn to take accountability for your actions without expecting anything in return. But I won't be part of that process. This is the last time we'll communicate. Goodbye, Richard. I mailed it and felt a door close in my heart, the final door. 2 years after the trial, I was having lunch with Mrs. Henderson. We'd stayed friends even after I moved, when she asked me if I'd ever consider dating again. Maybe, I said, if I met the right person, but I'm not looking. Sometimes the best things come when we're not looking, she said with a knowing smile. A month later, I met James. He was a retired teacher, a widower, who volunteered at the same women's shelter I did. He had kind eyes and a gentle laugh, and he didn't need anything from me except my company. We started as friends, then more than friends. We took it slow. He never asked about my money, never asked to move into my house, never tried to control or change me. He just loved me, simply, honestly. It was nothing like what I'd had with Richard. It was better. 3 years after the trial, I got a call from Adia Martinez. Mrs. Brennan, I wanted to let you know and that Richard Brennan is up for early parole. There's going to be a hearing. You have the right to submit a victim impact statement or appear in person. I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I wrote a statement. Richard Brennan tried to kill me for money. He failed. I survived, and I've built a beautiful life without him. I don't think about him anymore. I don't hate him. I don't wish him harm, but I also don't think he should be released early. He needs to serve his full sentence. Not as punishment, but as a consequence. Actions have consequences. That's what I learned from this experience. I hope Richard has learned that too. Respectfully, Victoria Brennan. The parole board denied his early release. He'd served the full 12 years. I didn't feel triumphant when I heard. I felt nothing at all. Richard had become a stranger, a character in a story that happened to someone else. I was someone new now. 5 years after the trial, James and I got married. It was a small ceremony on the beach, just close friends. I wore a simple white dress and my mother's emerald necklace. James cried when I walked toward him, and so did I. But they were happy tears. David was there, of course. He'd become like family. I'm proud of you, he told me at the reception, for surviving, for thriving, for not letting what happened define you. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know. Maybe he was right. That night, dancing with James under string lights while the ocean whispered nearby, I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, the woman who'd woken up from a coma to learn her husband wanted her dead, the woman who'd been scared and betrayed and broken. She was still part of me, but she wasn't all of me. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and transformed it into strength. I'd taken betrayal and turned it into boundaries. I'd taken fear and turned it into freedom. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor, a fighter, a woman who knew her worth and wouldn't settle for less. And I was happy. Not happy in spite of what happened. Happy because of what I did after it happened. I chose myself. I fought for myself. I saved myself. And that made all the difference. 6 years after the trial, I got one final letter from Richard. I almost didn't open it, but something made me. Vicky, I'm writing to let you know I'm being released next month. I've served my time. I'm a different person now. I've been sober for 6 years. I've completed therapy. I've taken accountability for what I did. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right. I needed to face consequences. I needed to change. I have. I'm working with a re-entry program, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make amends for the harm I caused. I'll never bother you again. I just wanted to say thank you for surviving, for testifying, for holding me accountable. You gave me the chance to become someone better. I won't waste it, Richard. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe he had changed. Maybe he hadn't. It wasn't my problem anymore. I had a life to live. A husband who loved me. Friends who supported me. Work that mattered. I had everything I needed. And Richard had nothing but the rest of his life to figure out who he wanted to be. I hoped, for everyone's sake, he chose better this time. But either way, I was done. The story was over, and I was finally, truly free.